الترشيحي لرئاسة المجلس البلدي لمدينة بيروت.
Good afternoon. You're watching the English newscast on Future Television. I'm Linda Tamim, and these are today's top stories. The cabinet agrees to extend Lebanon's security agencies access to the country's telecommunications data for yet another year. Parliament Speaker Nabih Berri calls on joint parliamentary committees to hold a session next Tuesday to discuss several draft electoral laws. And the UN says no date has been set for the next round of Syria peace talks in Geneva, as UN Special Envoy Staffan de Mistura is struggling to keep the peace process alive. The cabinet has agreed to extend Lebanon's security agencies access to the country's telecommunications data for another year. Information Minister Ramzi Jrej said data will be shared with all security agencies, including state security. A leadership dispute between the head of the State Security Department, Major General George Kara, and his deputy, Brigadier General Mohammed Tufaili, was not on the agenda of the meeting. Prime Minister Tamam Slam, who was tasked with following up on the disagreement during last week's session, will continue his efforts to resolve the dispute. Speaking before the meeting, Culture Minister Ronia Araji warned of the delicate situation that the country is passing through and urged ministers to tackle essential matters. Parliament Speaker Nabih Berri has called on joint parliamentary committees to hold a session next Tuesday to discuss several draft electoral laws. A statement released by the Parliament's press office says the session will be held by the Committees of Finance and Budget, Administration and Justice, Foreign and Emigrant Affairs, National Defense, Interior, Municipalities and Media and Communications. This announcement comes only 2 days after Berri decided to postpone further legislative sessions until these joint committees complete their discussions. His stance effectively fulfills a key demand of the Free Patriotic Movement and the Lebanese forces, which have refused to attend any legislative session unless an electoral law is listed as the first item on the agenda. The U.S. has given the Lebanese internal security forces 49 vehicles to better assist it with its missions and increase its capabilities. The ceremony, which was held at the ISF Mobile Forces premises in Baye, was attended by senior ISF officials and interim U.S. ambassador to Lebanon, Mr. Richard Jones.
The United States Embassy is proud to partner with the internal security forces in training and equipping Lebanese security forces to keep the Lebanese people and their homeland safe. Since 2008, the Embassy's Office of International Narcotics and Law Enforcement Affairs in Beirut has provided over $160 million in assistance to the ISF, the Internal Security Forces. Today's ceremony marks the official turnover of 40 Harley-Davidson motorcycles, 4 passenger vans, and 5 passenger buses. You can see the buses behind us, or behind the photographers at least. This is another step forward in helping to ensure that the internal security forces have the equipment they need to effectively deliver law enforcement services to the Lebanese public. Today, we are marking another tangible example of the continued cooperation between the Ministry of Interior and municipalities, the internal security forces, and the United States government. We are committed to working together to further strengthen both the professionalism and the capabilities of the internal security forces. There are a number of recent examples of law enforcement success by the internal security forces for which we should be proud. I would like to congratulate both the leadership of the internal security forces as well as its officers for the recent arrests and disruption of a network that engaged in the abhorrent practice of trafficking in persons. It is these kinds of achievements that help to keep Lebanon safe for its citizens and residents and reflect the commitment of Lebanese authorities to upholding the rule of law. From our side, the United States Embassy is proud to partner with the ISF. It is part of our long-standing pledge to work with the Lebanese people and the institutions of the state, especially those in the security sector, to build a more stable and prosperous Lebanon. عايش الصداقة اللبنانية الأمريكية وعايش لبنان. شكراً.
UN says no date has been set for the next round of Syria peace talks, contradicting a report quoting Russia's Deputy Foreign Minister Mikhail Bogdanov as saying talks will resume in Geneva on May 10. UN Special Envoy Staffan de Mistura is struggling to keep the peace process alive after the main opposition High Negotiations Committee left formal talks last week. Asked whether a new date has been set, the HNC said it was up to the UN to say when peace talks will resume, but reiterated it will not take part until its demands are met. De Mistura was due to address the UN Security Council by video link from Geneva tonight at the end of a two-week round which began on April 13th. He is expected to speak beforehand with both U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry and Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton marched towards party nominations after strong showing in presidential primaries. That's coming up next. Welcome back. Paris attack suspect Salah Abdeslam was brought to court after prosecutors announced he had been extradited from France from Belgium in the morning. 26-year-old Abdeslam is suspected of playing a major part in November's attacks in Paris by Islamist militants in which 130 people were killed. He was Europe's most wanted fugitive until his capture in Brussels on March 18 after a 4-month manhunt. He was to appear before French judges later in the day. A scanning device that identifies minuscule quantities of explosive particles invisible to the naked eye has been devised by a British team of mechanical engineers and chemists. The team believes its X-Detect scanner could transform airport security and would have prevented this year's Brussels airport bombings had it been installed there. More details in this report.
British scientists say they can prevent attacks like the recent Brussels airport bombings that killed 32 people. Loughborough University spin-out Laser Optical Engineering says its X-Detect scanner spots minuscule explosive particles.
The system consists of a pulsed ultraviolet laser in here, and there's some special cameras designed to look specifically for the explosive molecules. We've got a power supply down here, and then we've got the brains of the unit, the processing system, which is then able to recognize the explosives. So much so that we can see the explosives on virtually any background.
Handling explosives leaves invisible traces on fingers and clothes, which are transferred to anything touched by would-be bombers.
Having touched the Semtex, there's no visible residue on my fingers, and yet the system's automatically pulling that out.
Security operators would be alerted in real time by silent alarm. X-Detect could be deployed near entrances to transport hubs and sports stadia. It would be hidden from view, which security experts say is crucial.
Good security is often the kind of security where you don't know that things are going on. So with that technology that we've seen developed by Loughborough University, that could be placed in areas in a covert way. We could be looking at identifying explosive traces and compounds on people, and they'd be completely unaware of it.
X-Detect doesn't produce invasive images of travellers, unlike other controversial scanners. The firm believes it's created a clear deterrent to potential bombers, while speeding our transit through airports. It's currently being tested by an international courier to scan its cargo.
Moving on to the U.S., Donald Trump swept all 5 presidential primaries held on Tuesday, strengthening his grip on the Republican Party race for a U.S. presidential nomination. Meanwhile, Democrat Hillary Clinton raced ahead of the rival Bernie Sanders. Trump demolished Ted Cruz and John Kasich in Connecticut, Delaware, Maryland, Pennsylvania, and Rhode Island. A stunning show of force by a candidate seen as a populist political savior by millions, despite being loathed by the party establishment.
I just want to thank everybody. This is a far bigger win than we even expected, all 5. And that's something that's really I hear that, you know, he'll be presidential, he'll be not presidential, he'll do this. It's very easy to be presidential. By the way, much easier, but I'm not playing a part. Look, I started off with 17. I'm down now, I'm winning it. It's over. As far as I'm concerned, it's over. These 2 guys cannot win. There's no path. So why would I change? You know, if you have a football team and you're winning, and then you get to the Super Bowl, you don't change your quarterback, right? So I'm not changing. Hillary will be horrible, absolutely horrible on economic development. She will be terrible on jobs. She knows nothing about jobs except for jobs for herself. And when it came to answering the phone, at 3 o'clock in the morning, she was sleeping, okay? She wasn't, with Benghazi and all of the other problems. You look at what she did with Syria. You look at what she's done in so many different ways. She will not be a good president. She doesn't have the strength. She doesn't have the stamina.
With your help, we're going to come back to Philadelphia for the Democratic National Convention. With the most votes and the most pledged delegates. We're going to imagine a tomorrow where hard work is honored, families are supported, streets are safe, and communities are strong, and where love trumps hate. Now, the other day, Mr. Trump accused me of playing the, quote, woman card. Well, if fighting for women's health care and paid family leave and equal pay is playing the woman card, then deal me in. Let's go forward, let's win the nomination, and in July, let's return as a unified party. Thank you all so much.
33 lions removed from circuses in Peru and Colombia will be back in Africa by next week after spending years in South America. 24 of the lions were rescued from Peruvian circuses during surprise raids organized by Animal Defenders International that says they were living in deplorable conditions. Another 9 lions were handed to the group by a Colombian circus. The wildlife advocacy group has worked with authorities to crack down on illegal wildlife use and trafficking in order to rescue the animals. ADI President Jan Kramer said the scope of the operation sends a clear message to people around the world.
This is a hugely important rescue mission because it does make a statement around the world about the way people treat animals and about our relationship with the other species who share our planet. This is their planet too. They have the right to live here. And the way they're treated by humans is incredibly bad, and we need to change the way we treat other animals. So it's important for that reason. It's a statement about the importance of showing respect and compassion to other species, but also it shows people that we can make a change.
This marks the end of our bulletin for today. Now for a reminder of our top stories. The cabinet agrees to extend Lebanon's security agencies access to the country's telecommunications data for another year. Parliament Speaker Nabih Berri calls on joint parliamentary committees to hold a session next Tuesday to discuss several draft electoral laws. And the UN says no date has been set for the next round of Syria peace talks in Geneva, as UN Special Envoy Staffan de Mistura is struggling to keep the peace process alive. Those are your top stories in English from us here at Future Television. I'm Lynn Simim, signing off.
بترشيحي لرئاسة المجلس البلدي لمدينة بيروت.